Good morning, students. Can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, miss.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we are doing barriers to communication. We have already seen physical barriers, mechanical barriers, and language barriers. Today, we are going to start with psychological barriers. So let's start. The first psychological barrier is status block. Here is a case study of status block. A salesman of a tea manufacturing company tells his manager that their sale is going down because the rival company is adding aroma to its tea. But the manager ignores him, saying, "Bad carpenters should not blame their tools." However, when sale falls down all over the country, 14 months later, the company hires the external consultants who, after doing extensive field research and charging huge amount of fees, suggest the same solution, that is adding aroma to the tea. Now, this is a case study. What is happening over here? Here there are two people. One is the salesman, the other one is manager. Salesman has a lower status and the manager has a higher status. So the manager thinks because he is higher in the hierarchy, he knows better. This is his status block. He does not pay any attention to his subordinate. Is that clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
The second one is resistance to change. All the human beings are subject or are, what you can say, victims of their own habits. They don't want to change. And here is an example of resistance to change in case of Nokia company. See the case? At the turn of the 20th century, Nokia was a leading mobile manufacturing company in the world, connecting people. However, between 2007 and 2015, Nokia became the most spectacular business failure, thanks to its inability to respond to the changing industry circumstances. During late 1980s and early 1990s, Nokia had developed professional, no-nonsense, and closed organizational culture with bureaucratic organizational form. It had the rational mindset and superior technological competence within the mobile phone sector. As a result, Nokia became the market leader. However, the game changed in 2007 when Apple and Google, the two computer giants, entered telecommunication sector. Focus shifted to software and applications. Nokia's risk aversion and closed organizational culture could not adapt to the growing need for new innovations through open and cooperative working style. As Nokia could not abandon its integral outmoded habits and structures, it soon vanished from the market. So, Nokia had the closed organizational structure, and the changing times required open organizational structure. But because Nokia could not adapt to this particular change, because there was resistance to change, Nokia disappeared altogether. So this is an example of resistance to change. Nobody wants to change, but you have to change, because if you don't change, you will not be able to maintain your status in the changing world. Is it clear to all?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Then the next psychological barrier is different perceptions. Now see this particular picture. It is one picture, but you can see two different things in this particular picture. Either you can see two faces or you can see a vase. Similarly, in the second picture, you can either see a rabbit or you can see a bird. Can you see both?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
This is the beak of the bird. And if you want to see the rabbit, this is the ears of the rabbit. So it is the same picture, but you are seeing two different things depending on your perception. Perception, point of view. See the third picture. Here you see either an old woman or a young girl. If you see this as a chin, this is an old woman. And if you focus here as a chin, you find a young girl looking away. Can you see both?
Yes, ma'am.
So see, the picture is same, but you can see two different things. Why you can see two different things? Because you have two different points of views. It is again a psychological barrier. The next one is allness and closed mind. Now, see this quote. A closed mind is a tortured mind. You can't possibly be at peace if you are constantly judging and fighting everyone around you. Now, what happens in this particular case? You feel that you know everything in the world. And because you know everything in the world, you need not learn anything new. And if anybody else wants to tell you something new, you reject the viewpoint of that person. And as a result, there is constant fighting. See the other quotation. The attitude of those who are unaware that they are abstracting and thus assume that what they say or know is absolute, definitive, complete, certain, all-inclusive, positive, final. And all there is, or at least all there is, that is important or relevant to say or know about the subject. So here you have the definition of allness of mind. First we have seen the closed mind. Here we are seeing allness. What is allness? You feel that whatever you know is absolute, definite, complete, certain, all-inclusive, positive, and final. Obviously, this assumption is wrong. Nobody knows everything in the world. So let's see the various stages of allness. Allness is acting as if what I am saying, writing, or thinking includes all that is important about the subject. There is unawareness of abstraction. Abstraction, it means I have limited details due to my nervous system. We cannot pay attention to all the things simultaneously. So what we do, we focus on limited things, and that process is known as abstraction. But in case of allness, there is no awareness of abstraction. Then there is also no awareness that people are abstracting different things. I assume that what I know is what you know. For example, I gave you the earlier different perceptions. If I'm seeing the old lady, I assume that everybody is seeing the old lady in the picture. I don't accept that the other person may be seeing a young girl in the picture. Then we come to evaluating a group. I unconsciously assume that my experience with one or a few members holds for all. I don't accept that people are different. I assume that all are same. And finally, I am closed to new or different. I assume that my way is the correct way. So please note down these stages: allness, unawareness of abstraction, abstracting different details, evaluating a group, and close to new or different. Please note down the important points. Should I change the slide? Have you noted down?
Yes, miss.
The next psychological barrier is halo and horn effect. What exactly is this? You can see two figures over here. The figure in red is that of a Satan, an evil person, and the figure in white is that of an angel, a good person. So what we assume that some people are totally bad and some people are totally good. Halo and horn effect is a cognitive bias that causes you to allow one trait, either good, that is halo, or bad, that is horns, to overshadow other traits, behaviors, actions, or beliefs. In psychology, horn effects and halo effects happen all the time. For example, attractive people are, on average, thought to be more intelligent, even though this isn't true. Similarly, overweight people are thought to be lazy, which is not necessarily the case. So, in short, it means that we judge people depending on one particular quality or trait. We put people in either or category. People are either totally good or they are totally bad. So that is known as halo and horn effect. So please note down the examples. Halo effect. Attractive people are thought to be more intelligent. And horn effect. Overweight people are thought to be lazy.
Ma'am, repeat once again.
It is there on the slide.
Done, ma'am.
All have finished? Should I change the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. The next one is inattentiveness. Now, all of you have seen this particular film, Tare Zameen Pe?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, this boy
Yes, ma'am.
does not pay any attention in the class. Why? Because he is thinking about something else. So this is something that is known as inattentiveness. You can see over here, he is sitting at the dining table, but he is not eating anything because he is not paying attention to what is in front of him. He is more involved with his mental imagination, you can see. So that is known as inattentiveness. The next one is emotions. We have different emotions. Which are those? Come on, tell me the different emotions.
Happy, cry,
Happiness, yes. Sadness.
sadness,
Hmm.
excitement,
Then
jealousness,
jealousy. Yes. You can say envy. Then there is anger, there is fear. So there are many different types of emotions. And our emotions color our perception. So here is a case study. This is a story from Panchatantra. So let's see the story. Once upon a time, there lived a farmer and his wife. They had a newborn son. The farmer's wife wanted to have a pet animal to protect the child, which would also be a companion to the child. They debated and decided upon a mongoose. So they brought a mongoose and started rearing it. A couple of months later, one day the farmer and his wife wanted to go out of the house, leaving the child at home. The farmer thought that the mongoose would take care of the child while they were away. So they left the mongoose and the child at home and went out. The farmer's wife returned earlier and on returning home found that the mouth of the mongoose was stained with blood, and she immediately inferred that the mongoose had killed the child. In anger, she threw a box on the mongoose and the mongoose was hurt badly. She then rushed inside to see what happened to the child. She was surprised to find a dead snake lying in the room. She could infer that the mongoose had saved the child's life by killing the snake. Realizing the mistake, she went out of the room only to find the mongoose dead on the floor. She cried out loud at her hasty action. So, what happens over here? Here, two emotions are involved. One is fear, and the other one is anger. And as a result, the farmer's wife is not able to see the reality. She does not go and check in the room. She takes the hasty decision. Why she takes the hasty decision? Because of her two emotions, fear and anger. Should I change the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
yes, ma'am.
The next one is slanting. Here again, there is a story. Let's see the story. हिमालय के चरणों में एक खूबसूरत जंगल था. उसका नाम सुंदरबन था. उसमें तरह तरह की जड़ी बूटियां और पेड़ पौधे थे जो ऋषियों के बहुत काम आते थे. वहां पर बहने वाली नदियों में हमेशा मीठा और स्वादिष्ट पानी बहता था. उसे पीकर सभी प्राणियों और जानवरों को लगता था कि उन्हें अमृत मिल गया है. जंगल के पशु पक्षी साथ साथ मिलकर रहते थे. सब जानवर बहुत खुश थे. वहां एक मोर भी रहते थे जिनका नाम था रामू। राम के पंख दूसरे मोरों से और भी खूबसूरत और कोमल थे। रामू के पिता एक शानदार नर्तक थे, जो सब लोग सोचते थे नर्तक थे, तो सब लोग सोचते थे कि रामू भी बहुत अच्छा नाचता होगा। पर रामू को नाचना नहीं आता था। फिर भी उसको अपने पर बहुत घमंड था, इसलिए उसे लगा कि सबको सोचने दो कि उसको नाचना आता था। फिर जब होली का महीना आया, तो सब जानवरों ने होली मनाने की तैयारियां की। कार्यक्रम था कि होली मनाने के बाद सब जानवर एक कार्यक्रम प्रस्तुत करेंगे। बहुत करके सब जानवरों ने एक मंच तैयार किया। जब होली का दिन आया, तो सब जानवरों ने खूब होली खेली। वहां पर जितने भी रंग थे, वे सब खत्म हो गए। फिर सब जानवर अपने अपने घर गए और स्नान करके मंच वाले स्थान पर वापस आए। सब जानवरों के जमा होते हुए होते ही कार्यक्रम शुरू हुआ। पहले कोयल ने आकर एक बहुत खूबसूरत गाना गाया। फिर नागों ने आकर एक नाटक प्रस्तुत किया। आखिर में रामू मोर की बारी आई। रामू ने मंच पर आकर अपने रंग बिरंगे पंखों को फैलाकर कहा कि आप लोग तो अच्छी तरह से जानते हैं कि बारिश होने पर ही मैं अच्छी तरह से नाच सकता हूँ। उसकी यह बात सुनकर बारिश के भगवान यानी इंद्र ने यह सोचा कि रामू मोर कहता है कि वह बारिश के समय बहुत अच्छा नाचता है और मैं तो उसका नाच देखना चाहता हूँ। तो मैं रामू मोर के लिए बारिश करता हूँ, ताकि वह नाचे और मैं ही नहीं सभी उसका नाच देख सके। इस प्रकार सोचने के बाद इंद्र की इच्छा अनुसार बारिश होने लगी। बारिश के होते ही सब जानवर बहुत खुश हो गए और रामू के नाच को देखने का उनका इंतजार खत्म हुआ। पर रामू ने उन सबसे कहा, अरे यह मंच यानी आंगन तो टेढ़ा है और मुझ जैसे महान नर्तक के लिए यह मंच उपयुक्त नहीं है। यह कहकर राम मंच छोड़कर चला गया। सब जानवर उसके यह व्यवहार से चकित हो गए, पर एक बुद्धिमान उल्लू को समझ में आया कि रामू मोर को नाचना ही नहीं आता, इसलिए वह मंच अथवा को टेढ़ा कह रहा है। इसलिए उसने खड़े होकर सब जानवरों से कहा, नाच न जाने आंगन टेढ़ा। सभी जानवरों को भी उल्लू की बात समझ में आ गई कि कोई भी काम न आने पर हम सब के लिए आसान है कि हम दूसरों को दोष दे, यानी कि नाच न अजाने आंगन टेढ़ा। So this is a proverb in Hindi, नाच न जाने आंगन टेढ़ा. This is an example of slanting. Is that clear to you? Any doubt over here?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So now let's solutions to psychological barriers. First, avoid being egoistic. Don't feel that you know everything in the world or you are the great person. Avoid being judgmental. Don't judge the other person as inferior. Avoid being selective in attitude and behavior. Whatever you are doing, please first think about it and then have your opinions and attitudes. Avoid being rigid. Keep the open mind. Now, the first four solutions are for the individual, and the next three solutions are for the organization. So, the next point is participative management. The organization should give all members an opportunity to participate in the management. The next one is cordial employer-employee relations. And the last one is open door policy. Anybody in the organization should be able to walk and go to the higher managers and put forward their ideas and schemes. So that is known as open door policy. So please note down all the points. Solutions to psychological barriers. Avoid being egoistic. Avoid being judgmental. Avoid being selective in attitude and behavior. Avoid being rigid. Encourage participative management. Develop cordial employer-employee relations. And the last one, implement open door policy. Should I change the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Done, ma'am.
Next, we are having cross-cultural barriers. You can see a cartoon over here. Now the one bird says, how do I get to the other side? And the other bird says, you are on the other side. So this is an example of cross-cultural barrier. We are not able to see the perspective of the other person. Under cross-cultural barriers, first we have different views of time. Time orientation means how we see and treat time. It is a cultural or past, present, or future thinking. The time orientation of a culture affects how it values time and the extent to which it believes it can control time. For example, America is future oriented. It is run by the clock. It is the fastest pace to achieve the American. What is the American dream? It is the material success. All the students, please mute yourselves. Then we come to France. France is present oriented. They believe in enjoying the moment. They are not concerned with the past. They are not concerned with the future. They live in the moment. When we come to India or China, they are past oriented. They have very relaxed attitude towards time. With thousands of years of history behind them, they have such a long point of view that time at the scale of minutes or even hours becomes insignificant and inconsequential. So please note down these points. America, future oriented. France, present oriented. And India, China, past oriented. Should I change the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Next, we come to views of space. We have already seen something known as proxemics. So now we are talking about proxemics in cultural context. There are certain cultures which are contact cultures. For example, Southern European culture, Latin American culture, and Arabian culture. Here, people are engaged in more touching and stand closer during conversation. There are certain non-contact cultures such as Northern European, North American, and parts of Asia. There, people are standoffish. People have standoffish preference for large bubble of personal space around one's body. Argentina is most touchy-feely nation. Please note down the important points. Should I change the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Next, we have dress and behavior. As you know, the cultural or national dress code changes from nation to nation. So here you can see the dress code of different countries. Next, we come to decision making. You can see a cartoon over here. People are sitting around and they're discussing. And what a person says, what if we don't change at all and something magical just happens? So this is a type of thinking that you find in certain cultures. So now we are talking about decision making across cultures. In Western culture, you find analytical thinking, that is logic. In Eastern culture, you have more holistic approach where logic plus emotions are taken into consideration. In USA, individuals can challenge the authority. In Germany, individuals are prepared to take responsibility for the choices they make. These countries are more individualistic. In contrast, in Sweden, consensual decision by all takes a very long time. Consensual decision, unanimity. Everybody should agree with the decision. There should not be any type of dissent. And they are ready to spend long time for this particular process. China is mostly conservative. Confucianism teaches that individuals should maintain their place in the hierarchy to avoid chaos. As a result, they are not ready to take what you can say, individualistic and radical approach. Similarly, Arabs are also risk averse and hierarchical. Please note down all the points.
Done, ma'am.
All of you, please mute your mics. Then we come to the ethnocentrism. What is ethnocentrism? It is the belief that one's culture is superior to all other cultures. It leads to racism, which includes stereotyping, prejudice, and discrimination or xenophobia. In contrast to racism, you have something known as cultural relativism. It means understanding a different culture in its own terms without being judgmental. We also find in-group and out-group differentiation. That means a positive attitude towards one's own ethnic cultural group, that is the in-group, with a negative attitude towards the other ethnic or cultural group, that is the out-group. So see, this is a cartoon. The interviewer says, "We are live interviewing Richard Spencer, leader of white supremacists." The person, the interviewee says, "Well, actually, my preferred pronouns are white identitarian or maybe white nationalist." And see what the interviewer says. Stick with us after the commercial break. We shall continue our interview with the head of neo-Nazis. Are you getting the point?
Yes, ma'am.
In other words, this is the halo and horn effect in case of a culture. When we talk about halo and horn effect, it is about an individual. The same thing applies to a culture. Then it is called ethnocentrism. Your own culture you see in a positive light, and the other culture you see in the negative light. The best example of this is the Holocaust. What is Holocaust? It is the genocide of the Jews in Nazi Germany. And right now, you find Islamophobia all over the world. These are the two examples of racism. Please note down the important points. Should I change the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
Now let's see solutions to cross-cultural barriers. Number 1. Studying the culture of the host country in advance. Number 2. Learn the language of the host country and also the tone and register for the specific situations. Number 3. Study the history, religion and politics of the host country. Next, be tolerant towards different modes of behavior. Please note down these points. The current example of cross-cultural barriers is whatever is happening in France. Just because a cartoon is shown or a cartoon is published in a newspaper, some extreme Islamist, I'm not saying Islamic, there is a difference between Islamic and Islamist. Just because a cartoon is printed and shown in the class, extreme Islamist people beheaded the innocent people. So that is the current example of cross-cultural barrier. There is intolerance and there is absolutely no understanding of the host country's culture, history, religion, and politics. Should I change the slide?
Yes, ma'am.
So here we finish with the cross-cultural barriers. And along with that, we also finish with the barriers to communication. Let's summarize. Barriers to communication means any obstacle or difficulty that hinders the communication. We have physical barriers, mechanical barriers, language barriers, psychological barriers, and finally, cross-cultural barriers. Okay, so here we stop. We will meet in the next lecture.